Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Endzone. I am your host, Nathan Lee, and we got a lot. We got a lot here. I'm going to try and bring down my. All right, there we go. Not as loud in my ear, but we got a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. We had a bombshell in the NBA earlier today that I think we're all kind of working our way through to find out what's real and what's not. Crazy situation, betting involved, big scheme involved. We're going to break down that information in just a sec to kind of lay out what we got going on there. And then, of course, though, besides that, it is the start of the NBA season. So that's obviously we got to talk about our Pelicans and how they fared yesterday against the Grizzlies. I'll spoil it if you don't know they did lose, but saw a lot of good things. We'll break down what we saw in that game. And then to football, of course, it is still football season. And it was not a beautiful week for our Mississippi squads, but that's the best thing about football. It's you can go 1-0 every single week. Ole Miss, can they bounce back after losing to Georgia in yet another top 15 matchup against the Oklahoma Sooners? We'll break that one down. Mississippi State, can they continues to find their footing? Can they secure that first SEC win? We've talked about it in the past. I probably sound like a broken record. Now officially over 2 years since their last SEC win, October 21st in 2023. We have officially passed that 2-year mark. Can they do it against Texas? We'll break that one down. Then your Jackson State Tigers, they are back, but they are out in Las Vegas in the Las Vegas HBCU Classic against Grambling State. Big-time SWAC game for the Tigers. We'll break down that matchup. And then Southern Miss, obviously, we're not going to get too in-depth in this game. They were the one team for us last week. They got to win, big win, keeps on winning. You know, they keep on adding more wins as a Southern Miss grad. Love to see the team play some good ball. They have another big game, another key conference game against ULM this week. And then lastly, our New Orleans Saints. Well, not lastly, but our New Orleans Saints, our poor New Orleans Saints. Can they get a big win this week against the Bucks? Obviously, the division leaders in the NFC South. We'll break down that matchup. Hear from Baker Mayfield, that's not too much of a fan of the Saints, as well as Kellen Moore about the importance of these division games. And lastly, our game of the week, which will be a massive MAIS battle on Friday. We'll break down that matchup and let you know what it is in just a sec. But first, we do want to get into this breaking news, this bombshell from the NBA. A lot to go through already. We're getting information that, you know, you look at it first and it's not true now. So we're working through this information. So bear with me. But this is kind of the gist of what's going on right now. We have a situation in the NBA involving Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier. They are now under arrest in connection with a major federal sports betting probe. Former NBA player Damon Jones, who spent majority of his career with the Cleveland Cavaliers, has also been charged in this investigation. We just saw a report that came out recently, right before we came on air here, that Jones is actually giving out information on players when he was on the team, specifically the Cavaliers, when LeBron James was possibly injured. So big situation here. We're still working through all the information right now. Some other stuff. FBI Director Cash Patel says the sports rigging scheme, was part of a national criminal operation with ties to the mafia. Rozier is accused of rigging basketball games to help sports bettors. Billups is charged in a separate alleged scheme, an illegal poker game that took place in several cities, including Manhattan and Las Vegas. Jones is also charged in that alleged operation. Hours after the arrests were announced, the Trailblazers said Billups has been placed on leave. The NBA says Rozier has been put on leave. Very serious situation. We don't want to, put anything else out there that could possibly be incorrect, but that is the baseline information. We wanted to bring that to you. Obviously, if there's ever betting involved in sports, major sports especially, that's just never a good sign. Very bad look for the integrity of the league. We've seen this in the past, and usually you get some sort of death penalty here when it comes to, changing the product on the court. We've talked about it in the NBA, kind of a deterioration in the product that they're putting out there, with the actual basketball, the changing from the 80s and 90s to now, just a different style of game. And when you're possibly impacting the integrity of the game, that is no good. Obviously, no one wants to see that. But we wanted to hit on that, let y'all know about that. We'll have some updates in our later newscasts about this situation as well. But besides the bad news in the NBA, it was the start of the season, which is awesome. I'm a massive basketball, NBA, college basketball fan. Loved playing it when I was younger, and I love watching it. I got started on Tuesday on actual opening night. Last night, the Pelicans, they came in and got their first game under their belt. They were not able to secure the win. They would go on to lose that first game of the season to the Memphis Grizzlies. But hey, man, it was just good to see the guys back out there. If I'm being honest. But let's break this one down a little bit here. This is was an interesting game early on. It was an incredible game for the Pels early on. They came out taking a big early lead. It was a big lead too, 10 plus points. And they were really showing the talent that they have on the squad. We've been waiting for them to get healthy. They're coming into the season pretty healthy, and we saw a lot of those skill players. But this game really came down to the third quarter when the Grizzlies put up 41 points and took a 10-point lead. That's a massive swing. Obviously, the third quarter is always that big quarter in the NBA. We used to see the Warriors, dominate the third quarter. They still do it, but when they were specifically on their big run, those multiple years, that third quarter was always their hot spot. But the Pels, they were able to bounce back in the fourth quarter. Sadiq Bey tied the game back up at 11 with a three-pointer. And then the last 5 minutes were critical, and the Grizzlies relied on their superstar, Ja Morant, to lead them to the win. This is what Pelicans head coach Willie Green had to say, emphasizing after the game the need to play all four quarters.
I liked our start. I liked our togetherness. I thought the guys battled. We have to understand it's a 48-minute game. We did a great job of building the lead, and then we kind of came unraveled in the third quarter. So collectively, we got to go back, watch the tape on it, see what we can be better. But just from what I felt, they turned it up a notch in the third. We did a great job of climbing back into the game, taking the lead, but then just hard for us to sustain it down the stretch.
Very true stuff there. Willie Green obviously trying to put this team together with Zion fully back. Obviously now you got a Jordan Poole on this team, other players that are playing some good ball in their careers. Very interesting squad. Weren't very highly favored coming into the season, or sitting around that 30 wins, a little bit more, a little bit less mark when it comes to win projections this year. But if you're asking me, I like the talent on this Pelican squad. I really, really do. Zion, just seeing him healthy out there, gosh, he is unbelievable to watch. He is just such a special talent, and he has to take on even more special talent. Let's be honest, this guy is going to be the face of the league for a long time if he stays healthy. In their next game, the Pelicans are back on the hardwood tomorrow at home in the Blender against Wemby and the Spurs. I don't know if y'all saw Wemby, what he's done already in preseason and last night. I mean, he's a freak. He doesn't make any sense. Alien, that's what they call him. He's unbelievable. I've never seen anything or anybody quite like that. All right, now it is time for your game of the week. Sorry for the wait, y'all. We had to hit on some of this NBA, obviously starting, and then obviously the bombshell this morning. But it's a massive 3A MAIS matchup between Tri-County Academy and Leak Academy. Now, this is a battle of the Rebels. It's an all-Rebels matchup as Leak Academy. They're going to head up there to Flora to face Tri-County Academy in a key MAIS battle, like I said earlier. Now, let's talk about Tri-County Academy. We've been out to a couple of games there so far this year, and offensively, they were humming, man. 41 points per game. They're led by Cooper Johnson at quarterback, Cade Hunt in the run at running back, and then wide receiver Hunter Hiddlebrand. All these guys have been really humming on offense, what we've seen from them so far last week, really putting a beating on their opponent. And then defensively, they're also playing some unbelievable football, holding teams under that 10-point mark. It's really impressive what we're seeing from this team. Then we look at this Leak Academy squad. Now, we haven't got to get out to as many as their games, and I'm sorry to my Leak Academy listeners if you're out there. We haven't, but we have got to see them once this year against Canton Academy, and they did what they needed to do, and they won that game pretty big. They're averaging 38 points a game. Offensively, the passing game is really what leads them with George Wilcox out there and behind center. Nearly 2,000 passing yards with 25 touchdowns already this year. And then Garrett Adcock, another guy for them. That's their running back. He's averaging 116 yards a game, which is really special. And then the defense, they're allowing a little bit more than Tri-County, around that 17-point mark. But what an interesting game. What a great game this will be. Obviously, we had some big games to pick between. Never easy picking the game of the week. But this game, obviously, tune in Friday night, tomorrow night at 10 p.m. for your Endzone show to find out the score in that one, as well as many more games throughout the state. We got some big ones, y'all. This is a big week. So you're definitely going to want to tune in to stay up to date on all of that and all the scores in your high school football for your Endzone show. So now it's college football. We're rolling through this. I'm kind of picking up my pace a little bit here because we still got some teams to talk about. We still got Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Jackson State. Wasn't able to fit in Southern Miss because I knew this time constraint. But let's get into the Ole Miss Rebels. What an opportunity this is going to shape out to be here. Ole Miss coming into this game after losing to Georgia. What a game that was. Unbelievable game. Let's start with Ole Miss, what they did right. Offensively, I don't have to say much, right? I mean, we saw what they did offensively. They had 5 touchdowns in their first 5 drives. Unbelievable start, just rolling on offense, really doing whatever they wanted. Trinidad Chambliss goes out there to Georgia, saw a crazy stat that in that Georgia game, there were more fans in that single game in that stadium than had been at all of his games back at Ferris State last season. I think it was around 70,000 for Ferris State combined for a whole season. Georgia was around that 90,000 mark. So just unbelievable. Unbelievable performance for him, but you cannot pull up the win. Why did that happen? Well, let's talk about it. The things that I said last week. 4 quarters. You have to play 4 quarters against the Georgia Bulldogs. You have to. And they played 3 quarters. They owned those 3 quarters, had a 9-point lead going into the fourth. And then the fourth quarter came 17-0. They were outscored. So it just shows you right there, that right there, as we have another earpiece issue for my fans out there that consistently watch, you know how much of an issue that's become. But yes, let's talk about it, right? Ole Miss, we talked about them needing to play all 4 quarters in that game against Georgia. What comes back to bite them? Obviously getting a little stagnant on offense in that fourth quarter, and then not really being able to stop Georgia at all, really, in that fourth quarter. I know I'm simplifying this a lot, but that's simply what it was. So now you got to go into Oklahoma. You have to go into Oklahoma out there in Norman and take on a good Sooners team, man. Obviously, we've seen what happened when they played Texas not too long ago. But John Batir, their quarterback, was not healthy. Now he's getting back to near 100%. I don't think he's going to be at 100%, going through this injury and playing really through it. So I can't imagine he's fully there. But last week we got to see him kind of, get back into form. And, when you look at this Oklahoma team, obviously John Batir does what he does is special and it's scary, and you got to be able to contain him, got to be able to stop the run, his ability to run as well. But really what Ole Miss is going to have to watch, obviously the defense has been an issue for Ole Miss. I know they're undefeated before this Georgia game, but when you look at the stats, it's been a talking point. When you look at Oklahoma, though, their defense has been really special. And what they like to do is get you into those passing downs, and they're going to tee off with their pass rushers. We've seen it multiple times this year where they've had an outrageous amount of sacks in a single game, the Auburn game last week, obviously. So we've seen it multiple times what this pass rush can do for Oklahoma. For Ole Miss, it goes back to being able to stop the run. We hit on it when we previewed Ole Miss before the season. Big changes when it came to the front 7 of that team, obviously, as well as the secondary. And a really good defense last year, Ole Miss's best defense in the SEC last year. It's not the case anymore. just a talent perspective. That's what we're seeing here, right? We see what happens against Georgia, allowing over 200 yards. We've seen it multiple times this season where they've allowed a big chunk of change on the ground. Washington State as well, coming off of the bye. The LSU game, now you look at it, it's like 57 rushing yards allowed, but it's against LSU's offense. We've seen what LSU's been doing offensively, not a whole lot, especially when it comes to running the ball. So that's a big piece, right? You got to be able to stop the run of this Oklahoma team. Oklahoma's going to try and go up and down the field, get some big plays on you. You got to be able to stop those. But offensively, you got to be feeling good about Ole Miss. You got to be feeling really good about what they can do. But let's keep this thing going into what Lane Kiffin had to say about this matchup against Oklahoma.
These guys got a phenomenal quarterback that can do everything. This is probably feels like, looking at it, probably statistically the best defense we've ever played here. Basically hardly anybody's done anything against them. I think they've given up 5 or 6 touchdowns all year long. So this will be a really great test for us.
Very big test indeed, Lane. Let's keep this thing rolling to Mississippi State. They take on Texas, looking for that first SEC win. We have talked about it, and we've also talked about what's holding this team back, and that is quite literally the things that we have said for the past 2 weeks. Protecting Blake Shapen. You have to be able to protect Blake Shapen starting fast. That's another thing we've talked about, being able to play all 4 quarters. I know I sound like a broken record with that one, but we've seen it so many times this season where these teams aren't playing all 4 quarters. It's not a choice. It's just, teams scheme better, have a better a plan in certain situations, but not questioning their want to win. Obviously, that's what they want to do every single week. But with Mississippi State, you got to be able to do those few things, right? You got to be able to give Blake Shapen some time, because when he has time, we have seen him make plays. Obviously, late in the game last week against Florida, very bad mistake, questionable play call as well. But now Mississippi State's got put in the rearview mirror, back at Davis Wade. What can they do against this Texas team? Early in the season, everyone's like, oh, they're going to be the favorites, Heisman possibility for Manning. And then now at this point of the season, that's obviously all out the window. But the thing is they're starting to find their footing as well. It feels like, obviously, they almost lose to Kentucky last week. So it's one of these wishy-washy teams. Which version of the team are you going to get? Besides that, though, this is what Jeff Lebby had to say when it comes to the outlook of this team and where they stand compared to last year. Obviously losing these 3 games in the SEC, not getting a win in the conference yet is massive, but he wants to reassure fans about what they're seeing out there and what they're building this season.
I know for me and for us in this building, there's been zero talk of last year. That's not this year's football team. Like, you think about improvement, how much better, like the way we're playing the game right now, it's not even the same spectrum. So, and that's the stress for our guys is there's a lot of noise from what I've been told and through text messages that I receive. They're like incredibly supportive. I'm like, guys, we're 4-3. We're two plays away from being 6-1. We're not. Like, we've lost those games. We've been on the wrong side of it. I'm focused on this team.
Very focused indeed. Lebby was defending the play call late in the post game, especially against Florida. So questionable decisions there, but you cannot question this team's passion. I did forget to say, Ole Miss Oklahoma kicks off at 11 a.m. out there in Norman. Mississippi State back at home. That game kicks off at Davis Wade at 3:15. Let's finish up with Jackson State. They are back, and I'm ready to watch some Tigers, y'all. Jackson State going out there to Las Vegas for the Las Vegas HBCU Classic against Grambling State. Massive SWAC game. Obviously, we're in the part of the year where all these games matter even more when it comes to conferences and your divisions within the conference as well. But Jackson State, man, they're humming. Offensively, we talked about what they've been doing, running the ball all over the yard, averaging over 260 rushing yards a game. Defensively, they have really led the way for this team, making massive plays and massive moments. Had a shutout earlier in the year, really just leading the way for this team, right? The offense doesn't have much of a worry when they know the defense is not going to allow 20 points. All we got to do is what we got to do, and we're really seeing that from this Jackson State team and really finding their footing. Obviously, with that one loss earlier in the year to Southern Miss, where, hey, we were competing in that game, but we lost. man, they've used all of that for motivation and have looked just so good, since that game and really finding who they are and their identity. And right now we're starting to see it as they progress possibly to another championship. That's what they got their eyes set on, but they're focused on Grambling State this week. This is what head coach TC Taylor had to say about the matchup.
This one counts. This one counts. And then, it's another road game for us. You got to get on the plane. We'll travel over to Vegas. They coming off a big win. The big win against Pine Bluff. They found a way to win. I think it's their first conference win. We just got to go over there and play our brand of ball, though. We got to go over there and avoid the letdown and just play our level of football. If we do that, I think we'll be fine. I know we'll be fine.
There you go. Another big game for Jackson State. Massive games for Mississippi State and Ole Miss and Southern Miss as well. They take on ULM. Didn't have time to fit them in here, but we will have them in our game picks. First, though, let's talk about some New Orleans Saints as we wrap up this show for today. The New Orleans Saints are taking on the Bucs in a massive game. When it comes to the division, obviously the Saints are just looking for a win at this point. The Bucs 5-2. They're coming off of a loss, but man, the Bucs have looked good. The Saints, obviously, last week was kind of a step back game for Spencer Rattler with his 4 turnovers, 3 of those being interceptions. When you're a Saints fan, you got to look at the big injuries from this past week with Kendre Miller being out for the rest of the year and Eric McCoy, your center. So Kendre running back, Eric McCoy at center, officially out for the season. Season-ending injuries for both of those guys, torn bicep, I believe, for McCoy, and then ACL for Miller. So massive losses. But the Bucs are also beat up a little bit. Really haven't played with their full offensive line all year. Haven't played with all their receivers all year. They lost Mike Evans for majority of the season in their last game to a broken clavicle, broken collarbone. But in this game, the Saints are avoiding to go 1-7, something that we haven't seen in the past couple decades. Obviously, we haven't really seen that with 1-6 as well. Can they get back in the win column? Well, we'll see. Obviously, they got to be able to step up big time against a good Bucs team. Let's now send it to Baker Mayfield, who's not too big of a fan of the Saints, and then Kellen Moore talking about this being such a big division game.
It hasn't exactly been clean play from their part when we play them. It's a physical game. I mean, it is what it is. You expect it, division rival. Not much else to say besides the fact that I don't like them.
Division games are always fun, no matter what organization I've been a part of. Division games are fun. They're a little bit different than all the rest of the games. You're going to play them twice in a season. There's a lot of commonality. You know each other very, very well. Obviously, my understanding, this is a phenomenal rivalry. They've had a ton of success lately. We've had success. It's going to be a fun battle. Baker's playing as good a quarterback play in this league, and so it'll be a fun battle.
Massive game. Obviously, both teams are not too big of a fans of each other, but can't wait to see how that one plays out. Now it's time to pick these games. I've had a lot to talk about, but we got to fly through these, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's get right into it. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Ole Miss is 5.5-point underdogs in this game, 52.5 over under. I think Ole Miss splits these two games. I've said it beginning of the year, Georgia, Oklahoma. These were the two games you had to split either or. Oklahoma is very good. This defense could have its way, but I think Ole Miss is going to find enough points, outscore. Another high-scoring game in this one, I believe. Ole Miss is going to outscore Oklahoma. Texas, Mississippi State. Mississippi State back at home against the Texas team that had a struggle last week, got a big win the week prior. Which version of this Texas team are we going to see? I think we're going to see a Texas team that's ready to come out there and get a win. I think it's a close game early. Texas covers late. Jackson State, Grambling State out there in Las Vegas. Give me the Tigers. Jackson State coming to this one, big time, on a high, Grambling State off of the loss last week, 4-3 now. I think Jackson State handles their business quite easily in this one. Southern Miss, ULM. Big Sun Belt game. Southern Miss 12.5-point favorites. Southern Miss is going to win this game and dominate. Big win for the Golden Eagles on Saturday. Then our other two games that are only other two ranked games, between two ranked teams. Number 15, Missouri. Number 10, Vandy. Vandy gets a massive win against LSU. Can you believe that last week? Vandy looking like a top 10 team. That's where they're ranked right now. Missouri coming off of the loss. This is a massive game. Very hard to predict. I like Vandy a lot, though. Give me Vandy. Texas A&M, LSU. This is the exact game LSU would win against the Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M's got too much for them, but I'm picking too many favorites in this one. Give me the Tigers to beat the Aggies. All right, let's keep this thing rolling. We're about to get out of here. Vikings, Chargers tonight. Who gets this one? Chargers get a big-time win in this one against the Vikings. We're going to see who will be starting at quarterback in the coming weeks for the Vikings. Then, lastly, your New Orleans Saints take on the Bucs. Bucs are favored by 3.5, and the Bucs are going to get a win in this one. The Saints are not as good as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll make it that simple. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all. Stay tuned right here. WLBT, the 4 o'clock newscast has just started, so stay tuned on here to get up to date on all the latest in news, weather, as well as sports later in the night. So once again, I'm Nathan Lee from Beyond the End Zone. Thank you for joining us once again, and have a great day.